Well, hello there. Welcome to our Friday Live. I am so excited you could join me. I hope you had a great week and are ready to do some paint pouring. This is going to be kind of an experimental painting that I'm going to demo for you this evening. And I'm not exactly sure what's going to happen, but I have a good idea. But I'll walk you through what I'm doing, and I'll show you the paints I'm going to be using and the consistency, which is important because I'm going to be experimenting with a very, very thin consistency. This is the thinnest consistency that I usually work with, and but we're not going to be doing, we're going to be using it in kind of a new way that I don't normally use really, really thin paints with. So we'll find out what happens, and I'm excited to see what happens. So let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to jump over to my other camera and I'll show you the colors that I have selected here. So let's dive right in. So here we go. So here we are. I'm going to be working on a 16 by 20 for this demo. And I have got a base coat all mixed up. And this is an off-white. It's a warm gray. So I've used the new Master's Touch warm gray. They've had this color for a long time. It's a beautiful warm gray color. But they've kind of come out with this new branding, these new labels, and the consistency seems to be a little bit thinner with this new batch of Master's Touch paint, but I really like it. So this is a warm gray, and I've also added some white in here just to lighten it up a tiny bit. So that's our first color. That's the base coat we're going to be using. Here's another Master's Touch. That's a gorgeous color. This is a pearlized wine red, which is a new color that they have just started to carry recently. And again, these pearlized paints have a much thinner consistency, but I really like them. So we have this pearlized warm red. It's like a metallic crimson. It's a really pretty color. I've got some gold here. This is just some Liquitex gold that I've had. Everything else here is kind of leftover paints that I've been using for a few different paintings. I've got this dark color right here. It's a mixture of a bunch of different things. It's kind of like a dark, kind of metallic-y gray color. I don't know what's in there. There's a bunch of stuff in here. This one is a light blue-violet, and I've lightened this up actually with a little bit of our base coat paint because it was a little too blue for the rest of this color palette. So I added a little bit of the base coat in here, which kind of, it lightens it, and it also helps, it gets it more uniform with the rest of these colors. This one right here is a purple gray from Liquitex Basics. Again, I added a little bit of the base coat in here, and that also lightened it a bit and made it a little bit more compatible. So, and that's kind of what a mother color is. So it's kind of a mother color concept in a way, just to get these colors a little bit more unified. It's not exactly what the mother color is, but you can use it many different ways. And then I've also got a white here. This is the cell activator that I mixed up with Australian Floetrol. We'll see if I use this. I think I might use a little bit of it in an unusual way, and we'll see what it does. So those are the colors. It's kind of a warm, cool palette, but and then this base coat is kind of a warm gray, off-white color. So let me move those out of the way. Now the formula I use for all of these is my easy formula: 2 parts Floetrol, 1 part paint, and then enough water to get it to the number 5 consistency, which is the thinnest consistency I use. That's the no mound consistency, which I use for Dutch pours. So this is a very thin paint. We're going to be using it in a little bit unconventional way, and we're going to be doing a funnel pour, which is kind of a direct pour, and then I'm using these thin paints just to see what happens. And then it's so thin we might be able to do some other things to it. We'll get there when we get there. I'm not exactly sure what we'll be doing yet. It's going to be more of a funnel pour. I'll be doing some extreme tilting, so to move the paint around in interesting ways, and we'll just see what happens. So to do my funnel pour, I'm going to be using a different type of funnel. This is automotive funnel, and this is actually used for putting oil in your car. And what I got this because of the large opening. I really like that large opening. And here's another funnel I have used many times, and you can see the difference between the two. This one's much smaller. This one's quite a bit bigger. I want to get that paint onto my canvas a little bit quicker in a little bit wider stream of paint. You could always cut your funnels off too. If you have some of these are very inexpensive. You could just cut them right off and basically get the same thing as you have with this. But I'm going to give this a shot, and we'll see what happens. So I'm going to move my funnel out of the way. I'm going to spread my base coat on my canvas. Then we're going to layer our paints inside our crazy funnel, and then we're going to get going here. So let's begin. I'm going to just kind of move these colors out of the way for the moment. Kind of move my panel. Now again, this is a 16 by 20 canvas, and I'm just going to spread my paint on with palette knife. So I'm going to just pour a bunch of it on there, and I want this to be a little bit thicker, I guess. A little bit thicker just because our paint is going to be kind of flowing into this from the funnel, and we definitely want this to move around a lot, so I'll probably make this a slightly thicker layer than I normally would. Not crazy thick though. Now I could do a blowout with this. I have my blow dryer at the ready if I need it, and I might be using it. We'll find out. Just add a little bit more. Get some paint over there. Here we go. So just spreading this out. You could get this on here any way you want. You could tilt it around if you wanted to. Again, you could use your hair dryer and blow it out because it's such thin paint. I'm just kind of doing it the old-fashioned way with my palette knife, and we're almost done. I'm not worried about the edges at all. Well, those will all get covered as we do our tilting, and if they don't get covered, it can always come back afterwards and touch any bare spots up. So only worried about the surface at this point. And that looks pretty good. So we've got a nice even layer on here. And we got a bunch of air bubbles. I'm going to probably pop those with my torch. Let's go wipe off the excess. And there we go. And so let's see here. And by the way, if you have any questions, you could throw them in the comments. I see Novala is asking, what is the base color? And that is this right here. I went over it at the beginning, but it's Master's Touch Warm Gray, also with a little bit of white in there. So I lightened it up with white paint just to get it not so dark. And it's a very pretty color, so I like that one. Good question. And there we go. So we are ready to do a little torching. I've got my torch. Let's pop some air bubbles. There we go. It's looking good. Again, you want to move your torch quickly. You don't want to let it linger on the paint and scorch it. So that's it. It looks pretty nice. Now we are ready to add our paint into our funnel. So just wipe my hand off here quickly. I want a good grip on my funnel. Okay, so I'm going to hold this, and again, this is kind of an unusual funnel, but you could find this in the auto section. It's for putting oil in your car. So I'm going to place this on the edge here, And I don't want to go right in the center. I want to go off center somewhere. Right about here looks pretty good to me. And I'm going to just start. Actually, I'm going to add a little more paint right there, right under where I put my funnel. So I get a nice kind of a sealed lock. I don't want the paint to start oozing out too quickly. My goodness. It might start oozing out because it is so thin. But we're going to just start pouring our colors in here. No particular order. Go with some of this pretty red. Maybe some gold. I'll add some more of my dark. And maybe a touch of our cell activator. A little bit more of our purple. I don't know if I'll be using all the paint in here. We'll find out. And a little more red. And this is basically a, direct pour, all kind of a high pour right into the funnel. I'm going to take a peek. Ooh, it looks interesting. There's a lot of cool stuff happening in there. I'm going to go with another little bit of the cell activator. Why not? And then I think that's going to be it. So let's see. I'll put a little more of the red in. Why not? Let's get rid of the red. And now we are ready to move our funnel around. And what I want to do is move it in an interesting, some kind of an interesting shape, interesting pattern. So I'm just going to, as slowly as I can, let some of that paint come out from under the funnel. And as I do this, I'm going to flip. I should have done this before, but I'm going to just flip the camera. This will give you a little bit better view what I'm doing. So let's continue on. So I'm kind of dragging the funnel along the canvas a little bit. I'm raising it up, letting the paint come out kind of slowly. And then you can always push it back down to stop the flow of paint. Oops, there we go. See, it's a little tricky to let the paint out slowly, but I like this kind of larger band of paint that's coming out from this bigger funnel. Okay, and I'm at the other end. I'm going to just take a peek in there. I'm almost done with the paint, but I think I've got enough, more than enough. And so I'm going to just pull it right off, let it flow on the table, and I think we're good. So there wasn't that much more left in there. I'm going to set that aside. And we've got an interesting looking big worm of paint. So let's go back and I'll show you the top view. So here's our excess over here, but we have kind of an interesting path of paint happening. So what we want to do now, and you can see we have cells popping up. The cell activator is doing some interesting things. I want to start tilting this fairly severely, kind of a quick and violent tilt, actually, because I want the paint to move fast and rapidly. Now, this is very thin paint, so it will move pretty quickly. So I'm not exactly sure what I'm going to do, but let's just get going. Here we go. So and the point of this is I want the paint to create interesting shapes over the canvas. I want to leave some negative space, but I want interesting shapes, and you can only really get that by moving the paint fast, tilting rather quickly and severely. So here we go. And interesting, I'm just taking a look at it. So far, I like what's happening. I'm just going to move it back a little bit. Cool. All right. So I want to stop there, I think, for now. And I'm just going to take a peek at it. And it's kind of wild. And I kind of like it. I do think I have a little too much paint on there. I was hoping perhaps to get a little bit more of the negative space. But I think what we can do is maybe create a little bit more negative space. I'm not thrilled with this section right here. I like all these interesting red cells that have popped up. I really like this section right here. This is not fantastic, I don't think. I have some base coat left. So what I'm going to do is just kind of pour it on. Whoa. Kind of a big blob. And now I'm going to tilt this off and tilt that around and create, hopefully, a little bit more negative space. Kind of like that. It's, again, I'm moving it quickly and rapidly. There we go. So I think that helped. Kind of broke it up a little more. So let me see here. I'm just wiping my hands off, just taking a peek at if there's anything else I want to do. I see it now, and I don't know if I can do it. I'm going to just give it a gentle move. I don't love that corner right there. We got rid of it. Gonna move it back a little and okay, so what's next? Is there anything that's next? Well, I'm not sure. Now, one thing I was thinking of doing, and I don't know if I'm going to do it with this painting. I got to move that, oops, a little too much there, a little too much. Okay, there. I think I am done with the tilting. That is about it. I'll tell you what I was thinking. Now, I don't think this particular painting lends itself to what I was planning on doing or have the capability of doing. But since this is such thin paints, these are Dutch pour consistency, we could take our blower and blow some shapes out of our colors here. But in this instance, I don't know if that would add or detract from this particular painting. I don't think it's going to add anything. We don't have tons of negative space. If I use far less paint, and had much more negative space, I think we could maybe have blown some shapes with our hair dryer to create some interesting feathery shapes, and then get a combination of, you know, effects. So we have kind of these crazy cells and direct pour effects. You could also have had some of those blown out effects with the hair dryer, but I don't think this particular painting really lends itself to use that, unless we're just going to blow some shapes in the colors, but I'm not even sure if that is going to work or look good. So I think I might just avoid that. But that was kind of my plan. It was an option that I gave myself to see if it would, you know, lend itself to something like that. But I think I just used too much paint, actually. So, but it is kind of a wild design. I'm going to turn it around, actually, and see what it looks like from this side. Now, there is something else we could do, and I might actually try this. We've got some kind of big passages here of lots of the red, and I do have my cell activator. So what we could do is add some lighter values to this. That's one thing that's really, aside from the negative space, we don't really have any light values. So I'm going to grab one of my small palette knives, if I can find it. Where did it go? So I have my small palette knife. I'm going to add a little bit of a reverse swipe. So I just put some of the cell activator on the back of my small palette knife, and I'm just gonna see here, just very delicately, kind of with the flow of the rest of the paints, add some lighter values. That one really didn't do its cell stuff much, but let's see if we can pull that out of there. We got a few cells. It's kind of sinking in there. So let's see. I'm adding them, and they're not really wanting to stay, but I'll pull this one down. So we could play around with that if we wanted to. The white is kind of, this is an old cell activator. That might be part of the reason it's kind of breaking down a little bit, but that's okay. It's getting a little extra something or other. Now, another thing we could try. Let's just try swiping some of our base coat. So now we're adding, that's not as potent as cell activator, but we can kind of add some lighter values strategically in there if we wanted to. I kind of like that. Let's see. So it takes a gentle touch to kind of add those swipes of color. Let's see, any more? Maybe I'll try to bring so of course you can play around with this as much as you want. And yeah, this one is a little funky. I'm gonna modify that one. So anyway, it was an interesting experiment. So just gonna try it and get a look from the other side. And let's see. Anything else I might want to do. Now, if you have weird things that you don't like, this could be kind of an interesting way of getting rid of them. I didn't love that cell right there. So, okay. So these are just all little things you could do. You can manipulate. You could also pull lines out into the negative space. I don't know if I'm going to really do that. I usually don't like the way that looks. These organic kind of strings that are pulled out there, they usually always look better than any kind of contrived one that you can pull in. So I'm not a huge fan of doing that. Some people can do that really, really well and incorporate them. I'm not one of those people, I don't think. I never really like the way that looks. One thing I don't like is this. Well, I don't know if I helped it or hurt it. Anyway. So there we go. That's a weird painting. And I'm not sure which direction I like the best. I kind of liked it this way. It's kind of funky. So, I don't know. I'm on the fence. I'm on the fence about pretty much the whole thing. Except I really like the base coat color. I do love the red color. It really kind of took over a lot of the painting. But I think with the one thing I'm not in love with this experiment, which it really was an experiment, I don't love the effects the really thin paint has on the cells. I really like the thicker paint cells, I think, me personally. Plus, you get a lot more blending of color. As you can see, we have a lot of grays. And like that whole thing down here that we poured over, that was getting pretty muddy in color. So with the thicker paints, you can keep your colors separated better. The thinner paints tend to blend together more, which looks great down here, but in other areas, not so much. So kind of a half successful test, I'd say. It was interesting and fun to try. But if you want to give it a shot, go ahead and play around with it. One thing we didn't do is kind of blow out these areas. I think I'm going to wait with that because that's not going to help anything, I don't think. But you could play around with that too if you want. But I think it was a fun demo. I have been wanting to try to do something similar to this for a little while. So I'm glad I tried it, and you got to see the results. And you never know until you do it. And so there are parts I like, parts I don't like. I'll make notes in my pouring journal, and maybe I can, change some things, try it again. I would like to try another one using less paint overall and then blow out some shapes with the blow dryer. I think that might be kind of cool. So anyway, I think maybe that will be it. Now, one thing, yeah, I don't think I'm going to help anything with the blow dryer. I'm really thinking about just blowing stuff around in here and see what happens, because I don't know if I'm going to keep this painting. But I don't know. Let's go ahead and try it. I want to try it. So first of all, I'm going to pull out my blow dryer. First thing I want to do is see what happens if I just kind of blow the paint around within the paint, not into the base coat, but just see if I can move the paint to make some interesting shapes kind of within these bigger color areas. So here we go. So that is actually pretty cool. So I like that. Kind of blends the color together, kind of softens it up. Pretty happy about that, actually. Let's try another area. So I wasn't thrilled with this section. I wanted to just kind of blend some of that. But let's try something else down here. So again, I kind of like that. It kind of just softens these colors together. We had a bunch of kind of funky cells in there that I wasn't thrilled with. Let's try blowing out into the base coat. Let's see what happens there. I like it. That, I think, works. Now, if you do one area like that, you have to do that somewhere else just to add a little balance. So I'm going to try to pick an area. Usually, you know, if you're going to do that somewhere else on the composition, not like right in the same spot, but somewhere over here perhaps. I think I'm going to try it right here. Yeah, that looks pretty good. I don't love this. We have this, like, this is called a bad tangent. So we have this awesome shape, but it's touching this other shape right here. If you can see that, that's called a bad tangent. So what we're going to do with that, I'm going to grab my palette knife, carefully add a little base coat to separate that out. There we go. See, we created some space there, so they're not like touching. So you're gonna have to watch out for those weird, like, tangent things. And I think that improved it quite a bit, actually. So let's see. And then you don't want to get carried away when you add these kind of, you know, really interesting effects. The tendency is they're so fun, you get carried away and want to do it everywhere, and then that ruins the whole effect. Now we have two beautiful ones, I think. They turn out pretty nice. We have these kind of blown out areas. I think I want to add one more. 3 is always better than 2, usually. And I think this area right here is asking for a nice, one of those feathery effects. So I'm going to put one more in there, see what that looks like, and then probably stop at that. So here we go. Yeah, and it's a cool shape too, so I'm happy with that. So we've kind of, let's see, actually, let's see, we'll do one. Yeah, I wanted to blow that little area away. Now we were starting to blow some of the paint that was underneath there is popping up. So we could pour a little more base coat on that if we want. Cover that up. We could even cover this up if we really don't like it. And there we go. So I think now I'm going to call that good. I think we created a very interesting composition with a variety of different effects. And so I'm happy I just went ahead and did it. And I think we've improved it greatly. So there we go. That's kind of what I was hoping to achieve. Something with the variety of different effects in there, kind of a combination of different techniques, and actually worked. So the good thing about it is I didn't like that painting very much. So there's no harm in continuing to experiment on it. That's always tricky. Depending on, if you get one that's pretty good, you're like, do I want to mess it up? So it's kind of a balancing act. But I think it turned out pretty interesting. So there we go. I like it now. I'm pretty happy with it. I'm going to keep it. And not that it's the best painting in the world, but I like to keep these interesting experiment paintings. And then you can look back at them and say, oh yeah, there's an example of what you could do. So yeah, I'm going to keep it now. So I'm pretty pleased with it. All right. So let's see here. I'm going to just wipe my fingers off. I'm not sure about the orientation. I think I actually like it better the other way. I just wanted to flip it over. So I think this is definitely something I'm going to experiment more with. Thinner paints, maybe less paints. I have to keep in mind the color scheme is very important to try and avoid a lot of the muddy colors. But you know, you give that a little bit of thought and practice, you can kind of avoid them. So there we go. So I'm pretty happy with it. I think that's a better orientation, actually. And all right, so let's go ahead and see if there are any questions. If you have any questions, throw them in the comments. I'll be happy to answer them. Let's see here. I'm loving all the comments, everybody. So it's been probably the best. Let's see here. Great comments. I saw a great one. I think it was Novala. Here it is. My hair is a bad tangent. That's fantastic. Oh my gosh. Okay. Let me go back here and hello again. So thanks for joining me. We had like I guess kind of an early start or late start. I don't know. But everyone seemed to join a little bit later, but that's okay. It is Friday, I guess. And let's see. And Chris is asking, was this a funnel pour? Yes, it was a combo. It was a funnel pour with very thin paints. So I laid down that base coat, did a funnel pour, and because the paints are so thin, a Dutch pour consistency, I'm able to blow out the paints easily, just like a Dutch pour, and get those interesting results. So, so thanks. Good question. And yeah, Naval said it started that way. And this has got to be Donna with the eagle eye, looking for a white spot in the corner. I'll take a look for it, Donna. You're probably correct, as usual. But, and all right. Cool. Well, thanks so much, everyone, for joining me. I don't see any other questions. But I hope you found it interesting, at least. It's always fun to experiment. I normally don't do a lot of experiments on camera. I do a lot of them, you know, just in my studio by myself. But it's fun to sometimes experiment with new ideas, new techniques, and you can kind of get the wheels turning for your own experiments and combination of techniques and things like that. So hope you enjoyed it. Ended up being a fairly interesting painting. By the way, here is behind me a painting I did in the membership. This is our Q&A demo that I did, and it turned out pretty cool. It dried nicely, and that had I'll take some pictures of it. It's hard to see any detail, but that was, I modified a pre-existing painting. So it had like a base layer already dry, and then I did a Dutch pour on top. Turned out pretty cool. I'm pretty happy with it. I'll take some, it's not by any means perfect. It wasn't like a planned painting. It was just one that didn't quite work out, but I thought I could enhance it with something on top. So quite like it. So anyway, thanks so much for joining me. Have a great weekend. Do some pouring. Share it in the group. I would love to see what you come up with. And I will talk to you again very soon. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.